Something feels different about Balikatan this year. For decades, the annual drills between the Philippines and the United States were seen as routine alliance upkeep. Training rotations, interoperability checklists, symbolic reassurance. Important, sure, but predictable. Balikatan 2026 doesn't feel predictable. It feels intentional. With the Philippine Navy sending its most capable warships into the exercise, this isn't just about going through the motions anymore. It's about visible readiness in a region where maritime tension has become the norm. The South China Sea has seen steady friction, rising confrontations, heavier patrols by the China Coast Guard, and an escalation of gray zone tactics, water cannons, aggressive shadowing, ramming incidents, and maritime militia swarms. Against that backdrop, the image of frontline Philippine warships operating side by side with U.S. forces carries weight. Balikatan 2026 isn't just training, it's readiness, it's deterrence, it's strategic messaging in contested waters. And the timing? Not random. Pressure around 2nd Thomas Shoal and Scarborough Shoal has intensified over the past 2 years. Philippine resupply missions have been challenged. Coast Guard vessels obstructed, surveillance expanded. Every encounter carries the possibility of miscalculation. In that environment, exercises aren't just drills, they're signals. When Manila deploys its most advanced frigates, upgraded surface combatants, and integrated ISR support, it's communicating something clear. This alliance is operational, not ceremonial. Coordination is active, not theoretical. There's also a domestic message. For the armed forces of the Philippines, putting top-tier ships into a high-visibility multinational drill reinforces that modernization efforts are translating into real capability. Deterrence doesn't live on procurement spreadsheets. It lives in deployment, presence, and demonstrated coordination. And beyond Manila and Washington, Southeast Asia is watching. Exercises of this scale shape perceptions about balance, reliability, and resolve. Balikatan 2026 isn't an isolated event. It fits into a larger pattern. Deeper defense integration, expanded access agreements, stronger maritime domain awareness, and tighter Indo-Pacific coordination. In contested waters, signaling matters. This year, the signal is unmistakable. Balikatan isn't scaling down, it's scaling up. And that says a lot about where the alliance is headed. The exercise is scheduled for April to May 2026, a period when regional maritime activity typically intensifies. Participation has steadily grown. Around 17,600 personnel joined in 2023, roughly 16,700 in 2024. Projections for 2026 point toward 18,000 or more combined forces. That's not routine maintenance, that's sustained expansion. Core participants remain the armed forces of the Philippines, the U.S. Navy, and the U.S. Marine Corps. But what adds strategic weight this year is the likely presence of partners such as Japan and Australia, even if as observers. Balikatan is no longer viewed as purely bilateral. It's increasingly seen as a regional signaling platform. What makes 2026 stand out most is the naval emphasis. The Philippine Navy is deploying its most advanced assets, including the Jose Rizal-class guided missile frigates, the most modern surface combatants in Manila's fleet. These ships carry anti-ship missile systems, advanced surface radars, and interoperable communications designed to work seamlessly with U.S. forces. They're built for more than patrol duty. They're built for high-end maritime operations. Alongside them are offshore patrol vessels and fast attack craft, widening the range of scenarios. From maritime interdiction to coastal defense to distributed surface warfare. That mix matters. Exercises can remain symbolic confidence-building events, or they can evolve into platforms for operational credibility. The participation of top-tier warships suggests Balikatan 2026 is leaning toward the latter. This looks less like procedural drilling and more like credible warfighting preparation. Not because conflict is inevitable, but because readiness reduces uncertainty. And in contested waters, uncertainty is dangerous. The message embedded in the size and scope is straightforward. Coordination is real, capability is improving, and alliance commitments are being exercised, not just stated. Balikatan 2026 isn't just about ships and headcounts. It's the visible edge of something deeper. Under the revised AFP modernization program, particularly Horizon 2 and Horizon 3, Manila has committed billions toward upgrading maritime awareness, expanding missile capabilities, and building a more credible fleet. For decades, the Philippine military focused largely on internal security. That chapter is closing. The strategic center of gravity has shifted outward, toward external defense and maritime deterrence. Layered on top of modernization are 9 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement (EDCA) sites across the country. These locations expand logistics flexibility, allow pre-positioning of equipment, and shorten response times. Modernization without access falls short. Access without modernization lacks substance. Together, they reinforce each other. And Balikatan? That's where it all gets tested. This year's Balikatan isn't just another round of drills, it's a demonstration. Live-fire maritime strike exercises are on the agenda, the kind that move past scripted choreography and into real capability. These aren't symbolic launches, they're proof of precision, timing, and coordination under pressure. There are combined amphibious landing drills designed to test forces in complex, high-stakes scenarios. Command and control simulations are pushing communication networks, decision-making speed, and joint battlefield cohesion to their limits. Even maritime domain awareness data-sharing exercises are sharpening the intelligence backbone that makes deterrence credible. None of this is random. This is structured integration. As AFP Chief of Staff Romeo Bronner Jr. put it, the goal is seamless interoperability. When we operate together, we operate as one force. That's more than a slogan. Interoperability isn't just about whether equipment connects. It's about doctrine aligning, timelines syncing, command structures meshing, trust holding under stress. In modern maritime competition, fragmentation is weakness. Seamless coordination multiplies strength. Balikatan 2026 makes something clear. Philippine modernization isn't happening in a vacuum. It's being woven directly into alliance architecture. Ships aren't just being purchased, they're being integrated. Radar systems aren't just installed, they're networked. Exercises aren't just rehearsals, they're calibration. And in contested waters, calibration equals deterrence. This year's exercise carries meaning far beyond training objectives. In today's strategic climate, large-scale drills double as messaging platforms, and this one speaks clearly. At the heart of it all is deterrence under the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty between the United States and the Philippines. Every time Philippine frontline warships operate alongside U.S. naval forces in demanding scenarios, it reinforces a powerful reality. This alliance is active, not theoretical, not archival, operational. Since 2019, U.S. officials have repeatedly clarified that an armed attack on Philippine forces, public vessels, or aircraft in the Pacific, including the South China Sea, would trigger mutual defense obligations. Clarity reduces ambiguity, and reduced ambiguity strengthens deterrence. Under President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., alignment with Washington has become more visible and more assertive. The expansion of EDCA sites, the increase in joint patrols, and the steady rhythm of exercises all point to a strategic recalibration. Manila is signaling something unmistakable. Maritime coercion won't go unanswered or unnoticed. For China, the message is layered. Since 2023, Philippine patrols in contested waters have increased. Encounters near 2nd Thomas Shoal and Scarborough Shoal have grown more frequent and more tense. Water cannon incidents, blocking maneuvers, maritime militia presence. Against that backdrop, Balikatan 2026 projects resolve. It shows that maritime pressure won't fracture alliance cohesion. It makes clear that Philippine forces are not operating alone. And it demonstrates that U.S.-Philippine coordination is getting more sophisticated, not scaling back. At its core, deterrence is about perception and calculation. If Beijing concludes that escalation risks drawing in a prepared, interoperable alliance, the cost threshold rises. That's why Balikatan 2026 functions as both preparation and prevention. Preparation, because it builds real capability. Prevention, because it shapes how potential adversaries calculate risk. But it didn't always look like this. For years, Balikatan focused heavily on internal security support. In 2015, counterterrorism dominated the agenda. Jungle warfare drills, small unit coordination, stability operations. The alliance was still oriented largely around insurgency and domestic threats. Then 2020 arrived. The pandemic forced scaled-down participation and reduced operational complexity. That year's exercise reflected global disruption more than strategic ambition. But after that, something shifted. By 2023, the emphasis moved decisively toward territorial defense. Coastal defense missile systems entered the exercise environment, a clear conceptual pivot from counterinsurgency to external deterrence. The message was unmistakable. The Philippines was reorienting toward maritime defense. In 2024, that evolution accelerated. Integrated maritime operations moved to center stage. And now, in 2026, the pattern is undeniable. Balikatan has transformed from internal security support to full-spectrum maritime deterrence rehearsal. Not because conflict is inevitable, but because in contested waters, readiness shapes outcomes long before the first shot is ever fired. When the first combined maritime strike drills took place, something shifted. For the first time, coordination between the Philippines and the United States wasn't just talked about, it was tested. Surface ships, aircraft, and command systems operated together in demanding high-end scenarios. The alliance wasn't rehearsing theory anymore, it was stress-testing reality. Now fast forward to Balikatan 2026. The Philippine Navy is deploying its most advanced warships into the mix. This isn't symbolic participation. These are high-value assets operating in fully integrated joint environments. That marks a milestone. Balikatan has clearly evolved from internal security support to full-spectrum territorial defense preparation. And that evolution didn't happen in a vacuum. The threat environment changed, maritime confrontations intensified, strategic competition deepened. So the exercise adapted. Because exercises evolve when priorities evolve. Balikatan 2026 represents the culmination of that shift. A calibrated alliance drill designed for contested waters, maritime deterrence, and integrated warfighting readiness. But it doesn't stand alone. It sits inside a broader, tightening Indo-Pacific security network. One of the most significant developments in recent years has been growing trilateral coordination between the United States, the Philippines, and Japan. What used to be mostly bilateral engagement has matured into structured maritime collaboration. Joint patrols conducted in 2023 and 2024 marked the first trilateral maritime patrols in the region. That wasn't just optics. It was operational signaling, a message that like-minded maritime nations are prepared to coordinate presence in contested waters. Japan's expanding security posture has made this axis more credible. Maritime domain awareness sharing, Coast Guard coordination, and naval operations now overlap in ways that would have been politically sensitive just a decade ago. Meanwhile, Australia has stepped up its involvement. Canberra's growing participation in Philippine exercises adds geographic depth and reinforces a simple point. Maritime security in Southeast Asia isn't a narrow bilateral issue. It's a regional stability concern. All of this aligns with Washington's broader Indo-Pacific strategy: strengthen alliances, deepen interoperability, and build a networked security architecture instead of isolated partnerships. And the Philippines is increasingly positioned as a frontline maritime state within that framework. Geography explains why. The Luzon Strait is a critical choke point linking the South China Sea to the wider Pacific. The West Philippine Sea remains the epicenter of maritime friction. Securing these corridors isn't just about sovereignty, it's about freedom of navigation, sea lane integrity, and long-term deterrent stability. Viewed through that lens, Balikatan 2026 becomes more than an annual drill. It becomes a strategic node in a larger alignment. The pattern suggests institutionalization, not occasional cooperation, but structured coordination built for long-term deterrence and maritime order. Strategically, the alliance isn't operating alone anymore. It's operating within a widening coalition framework. Here's what that means in practical terms. First, capability upgrade. The Philippine Navy is no longer just a patrol-focused force. Under the revised AFP modernization program, and through increasingly complex joint exercises, it's transitioning toward a credible deterrent fleet. Guided missile frigates, interoperable command systems, and live-fire maritime drills signal a move from presence-based enforcement to warfighting-capable deterrence. That shift changes how Manila projects resolve at sea. Second, alliance reinforcement. Defense cooperation between the Philippines and the United States is arguably at its strongest point in decades. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty is no longer just a historical document. It's being operationalized through expanded access sites, joint patrols, and a steady tempo of exercises. This is sustained alignment with strategic clarity. Third, regional stability. Exercises at this scale function as deterrent signals. They reinforce freedom of navigation principles and communicate that coercive behavior in contested waters will be monitored and counterbalanced. Stability in the Indo-Pacific isn't maintained through speeches alone. It's maintained through readiness, interoperability, and visible cohesion. Fourth, escalation management. High-intensity drills improve crisis coordination. When forces train together in maritime strike simulations, amphibious operations, and integrated command exercises, they reduce the risk of miscalculation during real-world incidents. Shared procedures and unified communications lower the chance of confusion under pressure. That's not just preparing for conflict, it's insurance against accidental escalation. Balikatan 2026 reflects a maturing alliance. The trajectory, from counterterrorism support to advanced naval integration, shows adaptation to a shifting maritime environment. It reinforces a rules-based maritime order where international law, alliance commitments, and sovereign rights are backed by operational credibility, not just policy statements. And it places the Philippine Navy firmly within a broader regional deterrence architecture. Manila is no longer a peripheral player in Indo-Pacific security. It's increasingly a frontline maritime state embedded in a networked alliance system. In a more contested Indo-Pacific, Balikatan 2026 isn't about rehearsing war, it's about making war less likely. As these dynamics continue to evolve, the real question becomes how regional partnerships adapt, coordinate, and balance deterrence with stability. Understanding that process helps us better grasp where Indo-Pacific security is heading and why exercises like Balikatan matter far beyond the headlines. Thoughtful discussion and informed analysis are essential as these developments unfold.